Okay, there we go. Mic wasn't getting picked up. It switched sources on me. Oopsies. Got to. All right, yeah, I'm trying something new here with the stream. I've cut out the music because no matter how public domain and available it is, it gets muted in uploads or in Twitch VODs or YouTube VODs. So I've set it up so no music comes through on the stream. So if you want to listen to anything, make your own choice. You can mix and match with anything. So I was just before I figured out that my mic wasn't coming through, just sort of going through some opening prep. So looking at the sort of main line here. So looking at either c6 or bishop e7 as the expected response. If pawn, then have to take back with the pawn here. Otherwise, so if you take with the queen, we win the pawn. Um, if you take with the pawn, then this is just kind of not what you want. I guess you also play, knight b to d7. You see, those are the three options. I have seen c5, so not really knowing what to do. I've sort of defaulted to e3, but everyone seems to play knight f3. So in the case of takes, you just take back with the queen. It says, what's the analysis like? It wants to take here. Knight takes d4. Yeah. If bishop, and just d3. Yeah, that's pretty natural. Isolated pawn now. Natural development. Okay, that's not too bad. Yeah, so that would be typical. Of course, it's always that possibility, which isn't particularly concerning. Everything's sort of safe. There's not a whole lot of interesting angles there. I, I still, after having this position a bunch of times in a row, it doesn't come up anymore. So in Queen's Gambit accepted, and some other scenarios, there's this position where they can say take, capture, take over, sort of sacking a pawn, and then if they do something uh, fairly natural, like if they just castle, then they can get in a lot of trouble here with queen d3. The bishop has to go back and then knight g5, and that's really hard to defend because if you play g6, queen over h3, but nobody is playing this. Nobody's playing this. I also have when I have seen that's actually more common, but then they haven't been taking the pawn in the few cases that it does, because when you take the pawn, you can do the similar thing where you go up and then they can play there and back, and then you're in the same scenario where e3, knight over, and again, you'll see the evaluations start to build up higher and higher as you look at this. It's a tough defense. Um, Also wanted to look at the Slav. So knight f3, and then often you'll start to see, say, that to start off, which can be annoying because if they play knight f6, then queen c2 is a good opening option. But if they start with the bishop, they don't really have that option anymore. So I don't know if that would be what I want to standardize on, because one slight variation and it doesn't work anymore. End up having to do like knight c3, e6, and then we're into this sort of boring scenario. Queen over is probably going to be met by queen b6, c5, and nobody wants to take. So I guess that forces it back. But then this pawn here and this pawn blocked. Like the b2 pawn being blocked from supporting c5 feels uncomfortable. Oh, that's a nice strike. So if queen takes, and you lose the rook. So maybe that's a reason to do it. Of course, you don't have to do that. You could go directly there, but though again, you still have that option. So say queen e is an option. It's a different angle, so you might go. But I guess I'll get to trying to play one out. Let's see. Oh, this is still a little off. Just all right. So I never really understood. They always go back to there. There's lots of ways to go. So this probably transitions sort of into odd. I'm not sure if I want. Yeah. You just play d4 if I go to c. So let's just get castled. So if he plays g5, then I'll move my rook. In the time being, I'll just go ahead and defend. Yeah, just keep up with standard development. Possibly make that route. Also go up to there. There, pawn back. Could also go here to here if the pawn moves up. If I go knight e5, respond with d4. Also move up, but again, if you move over, then you just get d back. Queen c2. Does that gain me anything? This rook's not in the game yet. I could also make a push here on the queen side. He's got mobility there. So that'll prevent movement to this square from the knight or bishop. Yeah, more control over f4. Move the queen onto the c file. Now I could play up. Maybe that's a plan. Let's provoke him, get some luft. Also give a retreat square. I would like to be able to put another attacker on the knight. I could go here, and since I'm controlling f4, I can then double up. If I move c5, then it's opening up. So that's definitely going to weaken his king side. Of course, this is hanging now, so I have to protect it, move it, do something with it. I'm trying to look at, say, God, I don't know why the arrows just stop working sometimes. Sack the exchange. Sack. I'll probably want to sack the exchange, queen take, and then just queen across, and I don't have anything. So looking at rook a to e8, bring it across. Huh. He moved it, so he's not protecting this anymore. Any threat there? Any problem with moving it there? You can move queen, but then I move the rook over. Yeah. If you move the rook up. I don't know that that's actually, I think that's actually bad for him. So all right, we're up a pawn. That knight infiltration doesn't really do much. Light square is very controlled. Knight to knight. Of course, if I move this knight right now with that queen, go back. Huh. check, check, take. If he goes to h1 though, that doesn't happen, but that's still fine. So now I'm threatening check and taking on e2. Actually not sure what he can do here. He can't move the knight and protect the queen. His light squared bishop is useless right now. He can move his knight up, but his king up, I mean, to h2 to protect g3 and avoid the check, but then I just moved to f4. I'm still trying to find the right balance of like focus and investment. Oh, that's a clever move. So if I take, then check and take this knight. However, that might be completely losing because in that position I can then check. Pawn. No, no, that's huh. I mean, I have to do this. I can't calculate everything, but this has to be better for me. Okay, so there's check. There's check here. Check. Back. How do I finish this? Hey there, cowboy. Uh, huh. Oh, I always struggle with this type of like little fortress and working out the exact correct attack to finish the game. It'd be really helpful if this H pawn were on H5 or 4 so I could get to like, I could have that pawn on H4 and cover the G3 square, then it's easy. Um, if he just takes this pawn, if he just takes the pawn on B8, then check. Okay. Uh, I don't know. I don't think he can defend now. Um, How do you defend this? I'm threatening mate in 1 on g2. He's blocked off of that diagonal. He can't get over this way. He has to sack the bishop and queen. Yeah, sack the bishop, and then I think now he has to sack the queen, and then he's just back in the same position. Yeah, and I just move back and win. It's actually really weird that he played the correct defense, but the one that is just so completely losing that he hasn't resigned. I mean, it's definitely better not to resign. Like I don't resent that at all. That's the correct thing. I resign too early because I get deflated very easily. But I feel like I can pre-move the take, but got 2 minutes on the clock. I can make sure I have this correct. So now, yep. All right. So that went pretty smoothly, but it was pretty close as well throughout. 3 blunders. I have to dig that one up and run through it. See what I screwed up. Over the analysis board. Well, there was one big blunder and one little blunder. Yeah, swung the tide a bit, but not losing. One should have been completely losing. So did I just hang my queen at some point and take it, or what happened? So let's find out here. All right. So this weird opening. Well, it certainly likes my choices. Well, that's a fascinating recommendation. I'm going to have to look into the analysis of that more. It wants knight h5 here, but why? So, say just castles, like that's supernatural. H4. So threatening a take. So let's assume he just completely ignores it and just develops a knight. Bishop takes. Can't take back. If you take back, and queen takes, and it's getting dicey, but I still don't necessarily see the obvious. So again, let's say we it's tough to get the defender in there. Let's move the knight. Yeah. Oh, I'm missing the bishop. That's why I'm not seeing the bishop in the action. That's what the difference is. So we had them both point over there. Huh. So it did want me to go after that bishop, but I didn't bother going after this. I didn't really bother going here because I can't like get into those squares aren't available for the knight, so this is kind of off somewhere. And then I don't want to take the bishop because this bishop's terrible. It's just attacking a square nobody's on, and this pawn that you're not going to take. So queen c7, g, sure. It did. That's the first little thing. It didn't like that. It was a hard trying to decide what the right choice was there. If I was going to be like, what is the computer move Oh, what would I think is the computer move? I don't know. Rook A to D8, maybe? Oh, it wants to prophylactically go to bishop H7 or G6, so it's preemptive. Actually, it was in favor of my doubling rooks. Oops, accidentally refreshed the page. Yeah, so I liked E7 more than E6. So the issue there with E6 is you go, you know, right over and suddenly it's not great. F4 and now there's not any defense left. You didn't jump on that, so took back. It did prefer H7. I was trying to decide I should, uh, and feel like I was worried about that piece. Oh, okay. It wanted to go here and then have him trade, so then the queen isn't on that file. All right. Oh, I did just hang the queen, and he didn't take. What, that was a mistake? What was the? Oh, right, because the queens are hanging. But all right, nice, I got it. So I saw that he needed to go to G4. Well, that just loses the queen. Um, man, this is a tough defense. Yeah, there is no defense. You just lose your queen here. Oh, that was already mate. Duh. All right. Uh, try a new 10-minute. Let's see how this one goes. All right, D4. No French defense for you. So you're going to bring the queen up and attack that pawn for when he wants to castle. I'd like to bring the bishop here, but after um, knight c6, I'd be forced to open up that, so I'll just play bishop e2. Okay, now I'm trying to decide on a plan. So I can look kingside or queenside or up the middle. Obvious breakthrough is just playing e4. If takes, takes. But he's got too many attackers on it, so that's not good. Play D. You could close it up, which I'd be good with, or you could take and take with C. We open up this C file for a queenside attack. I've got everything pointed over here at the king side, though. So I could just start pushing up. Let's let's do that. He's going to have a hard time clearing out to go like queenside castling, so let's just assault the kingside. This pawn is already weak. Okay, that doesn't accomplish anything. That just loses a pawn. Um, okay. And go back or over. Okay, let's go back, castle, and push. No, I think I'm going to lock this up. Though he has that breakthrough that I can't do anything about, so it's probably better just to take. Yeah, let's just start pushing it. I don't want to commit to castling just because if we open up this file, I don't want that open yet, and I don't need to. He wants to go in here. But he doesn't have an attacker, so I can move bishop over. If he goes in, I win a pawn. So I'm up 2 pawns. I could put more pressure by moving the queen up and having 2 attackers here on the c6 pawn. Uh, I'm looking at knight take. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Being up 2 pawns, if all the pieces disappear off the board, I'm in a great position. Oh, that actually drops a pawn, doesn't it? Oh, I moved back. I mean, I probably should take that, right? Hmm. I'm looking at how I would like to probably open up some diagonals here. Okay, so I'll move. I think. Yeah. So then he could play that pawn push. I should play it safe and then castle. Now he got this pin. Castle will put a rook on e1. Uh, he takes with the knight. I'll take with the queen, and now I'm forcing a queen trade. If he doesn't take, then my rook is moving over on the next move. If he takes, take with the queen, and then we have a battery threatening if he doesn't stay close. Now we got connected pass pawns over here. Bishop will be coming out to f4. So that attacks the b8 square. Okay. He doesn't cover it. Next move is b7. Okay. So we just oh hey, is he noob? Uh, I wouldn't say so. I'd like to be. It's so hard to say what new, like, but what being good is at any game. Like, uh, compared, yeah, there's so many people so much better that it can easily feel not good. I think the main goal here is trying to learn how to just enjoy the compliments that I find. Uh, I've also probably spent a lot more time on it. It's getting low on time here. All right, how do we want to do this? Okay, rook C. This pawn's protected, so I just bring it up to C7. I have to start moving more quickly and uh, lessen the talk here as I try and fit everything in time. Oh, he just sacked. Okay. Trying to exchange off everything. Way down in time here. Unfortunate thing with no time increment. Yeah, no, bullets feels dumb. It does. 35 seconds. I think he has to play G5. I guess he could play H5 as well. I'm threatening uh, Queen G8 mate right now. I Should be able to pre-move that. No, he actually can't play H. He does have to play G5. If he doesn't play G5, it's mate. He does play G5, so he gets that far. Um, oh, trade queens. All right. Oh shoot. No time. I want to get all the material off the board to force us into a draw. Oh, I won on time. I didn't even realize he was running out of time. That was a huge time differential that it came back from. Well, that's not how you envision the win, but I'll take it. Let me go back and see what happened. That was just about to be a draw. We were about to eliminate all the material. All right, let me bring that up on the analysis board. Loading up. Yeah, so with if you run out of time, but your opponent doesn't have any material that could let him win, like if he only has a king and you have a king and a rook, but you run out of time, it's a draw because they couldn't possibly win. Um, so I didn't see a way to not. I didn't see a way to a win after I hung the rook. So I just wanted to get rid of all the material. So if I ran out of time, it would be a draw. Uh, so this is one of. This guy was playing. I think people call this the rat defense. It's basically just making relatively pointless moves, hoping your opponent screws up. Uh, but he ended up just dropping a couple pawns. It can be tricky because there isn't like an immediate. If you're sitting against, this, there isn't an immediate attack. It's kind of hard to get in here until he castles. It's going to be hard to attack. Um, I've already moved up the c pawn, so castling queenside's a little dangerous, potentially a little dangerous. So you kind of have to pick a spot to break through. It's hard to break through the middle. It's hard to attack on the flank. So you have to be patient. But once he opened up here on the queen side, I had this pass pawn, so I just focused on that. Um, and just slowly peck away. It didn't want me to take that. It was a good, well-positioned knight, but I'm not sure what the big difference was. So I like the take there. Oh, I like that it shows c1 as the best move. That's good. Oh, I didn't even time trouble. I didn't spot that hanging rook. That would have made it easier, huh? Trade off. I should have immediately gone here, but at this point I'm just racing through. Huh. That the rook c7 felt like a really weird move, but engine approved, so I'll take it. Oh, it calls that a blunder. I wonder. Yeah, rook take is stronger, but again, I was trying to. I find it more straightforward if I have a material advantage to just trade off the pieces, and then it becomes much simpler. Of course, it's easier if you don't blunder your rook in time trouble. All right, back to the chessboard then. Oh, Caro Khan. Denied. Play the Slav defense instead. All right. Okay. As long as you believe we can do this. This is a semi-Slav. I was playing this for a little while. It is black. It's very solid and annoying. Um, it doesn't really have an obvious plan. So I ended up not really like playing it or playing against it. So the standard line, you're going to have knight, knight. Um, Once this bishop develops, then you move that, play b5 to open up the diagonal for that bishop. But he brought the bishop out like a Caro Kann. Okay, so threaten here, he has to either take or go back. Um, so now I'm looking at, do I advance here? Or do I just want to continue development? If I continue development, do I trade off the bishops? Or do I just develop and castle? Let's go the queen side push. Yeah, usually the semi-Slav ends up. Usually the semi-Slav does have the bishop inside the chain, but the semi-Slav is basically you start is when you have this chain set up here like this against the Queen's Gambit declined. Um, you're right that it's more typical for the f5 bishop here to be inside. It usually develops to b7. Um, but I'm also not an expert on these lines, so it's possible this ends up just being more of a standard Slav. Okay, that's a good way to think of it. I'll try and keep that in mind. I always just thought of it as once you play the e6 pawn move was how I had it in my head as when it becomes a semi-Slav because that's usually when it differentiates. But if it's based on the bishop being inside or out, that would the e6 move would define when that happens. So that makes sense. It's weird he's just sort of refusing to develop this knight. If he develops that knight, then I can move to h and threaten the bishop. So yeah, he's just avoiding that. So now I'm going to trade off the bishops. So by playing h7, you're giving a retreat square for the bishop if you happen to play back. Oh, there's nothing wrong with castle. I'm actually probably ending up doing that right now. I'm just trying to get a gauge on what his plan is. Okay, this will open up a line right down the center with trades here. I can also keep it closed. Let's do that. Oh, okay, I think that should win a pawn. So we're up a pawn. So here or here. I play the more defensive move. G file G3 doesn't tend to be a great square for the knight. This pawn is weak now, so I'm good with opening this up. Uh, got that F. Yeah. I see this moving on to the queen side. Yeah. No, that doesn't work. Yeah, that's a good spot there, with the D push to expose the bishop and bring it in. It'd be especially nice if there was something to threaten here on this diagonal too. Let's see if we can sneak it by him. Let's give that a shot. He closed it off. But we'll still continue to open this up, I think. Yeah, let's bring the knight. We can plant him in a really nice position. Queen's got defense on this pawn, but there is the potential of it moving and not paying attention to that. Hmm. That threatens the e6 pawn, but if he brings the bishop back, now the queen's pretty useless. So that's probably a better square. If he brings it back, you just take the pawn. Don't want to get trapped. Yeah. And again, we've got this threat again. If he doesn't bring the bishop back. 312, getting down a little bit in time. Certainly managed to grab the initiative. Yeah. Though keep in mind, as I mentioned, if he goes to d7, knight forks the queen and rook. It's easy to miss though, um, because even if he moves over to get try and make something happen, whatever square, it just hangs that pawn if nothing else. Oh, hey, welcome back, Manavri. Yeah, that's sort of, I think the battery on the C file is sort of the fallback. Um, the position's pretty dynamic, so I really don't know what I should be looking at until he decides what he wants to do. He's having a long think here. So I've actually caught up on time. That's good. I think the question also, if we're looking at the battery, is whether or not I try and do any sort of other breakthrough first. I've got the couple pawns here. They have that can push up and open up the position a little more. But that's going to depend on what happens from here. My queen is still kind of dicey. I think he can get out. I bring bishop back, take rook over queen to d6, and you trade off queens. Huh. So I can immediately win a pawn by taking the queen, if nothing else. I could take the pawn first. He takes the queen. I take back with the pawn. Now I have doubled pawns, but I'm still threatening the rook. Then he has to move. Probably better just to take with the queen. Yeah, he shouldn't have taken there. He just gave me the C file again. Yeah, it was really hard to find a plan from his position. Still a long way from a win, though. Up two pawns looking really good. Time's getting light. I will have to defend here on the f2 square. But with this little material, I think I can pretty safely just play g3 and fork those pieces. And he gives it up. All right. So what was that about not starting a new game, Manavri? Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that ended up working out. 0 blunders. Always happy with that. Uh, yeah, there might be a better way to approach Slav and semi-Slav positions, but I find I just have to be patient or I get myself into trouble. Yeah, so there's leaving book. Yeah, knight f6 would be the normal move here. Into new territory pretty early. So I was suggesting queen b3 because the bishop's not there. You'll end up threatening b7. Yeah, I didn't like moving back. The engine so frequently is recommending that G push, and I just can't do it. I've got all my pawns pushed on the queen side. I don't want to just start pushing my king side pawns too. Uh, I'm sure the engine can get away with it, but I find I'm always very hesitant. He wanted to take right away. I guess that might be a little more forcing about how that looks, but um, I saw this and I didn't think that was necessarily the best. So what was it recommending? It was recommending takes, which is kind of what I was expecting more of. And this sort of maintained the general plan. But I certainly like the one where I get a pawn. How much of a difference is that? All right, I'll pick up that challenge in just a sec here. I want to see what was the best move here in this position because it was, you see it's +3 with by the engine despite only a one pawn advantage. It's recommending king h8 and king h7. You can see how passive that position looks. So rook e8. It's relatively fine, but it's just really hard. The problem is that you're just creating this fork. It's just getting faster to that position. Um, that's the whole problem. That's why it took so long to find any move. Is there isn't any move unless you're just biding time by moving the king. You just create problems. So okay. Now I need to find where that challenge was. And I'm not finding the challenge. There it is. I found it. All right. So I'm going to continue my work with the Benoni. Still getting used to it. I so rarely get a standard Benoni position. I got a couple recently though, so it's the engine really doesn't like the Benoni. Uh, it like immediately goes to like +1.2. It's one of these things where I have so much predilection to try and be aggressive and create complicated positions that um, uh, I need to be comfortable with making the slow positional adjustments. Yeah, no, I've struggled so much finding something I like playing against D4. I've tried everything a little bit and nothing stands out as great. You know, played the King's Indian, Queen's Indian, Benoni. Uh, I was uh, I was playing the semi-Slav because the way that I would approach it was I like playing the French defense against e4. So against d4, I'd play e6 and give them the option to transpose into a French, and then I don't have to play against d4. It's yeah, I haven't really played around with the accepted version of the Queen's Gambit. You know, if it's one of those, if it's it runs into it's perfectly fine as an opening, but it runs into two things that just give that sort of gut feels wrong reaction, uh, which is one that the opponent develops with tempo. You know, they develop their bishop and recapture, and the other is that I don't like them getting what they want, and I feel like accepting the gambit is what somebody wants, and I like being annoying, but it's fine. You can also get some really funny positions if you try and defend the pawn after you take it, which probably isn't a good idea, but it can be funny. This will be an interesting Benoni because removing the knight, uh, trading off that bishop immediately. So with the Benoni, normally looking at a breakthrough with one of these pawns. So actually, we don't have a pawn here um, blockading. Oh, sorry. Thanks for the reminder. Yep, I didn't switch it. Yeah. So let me go back through so I can show what happened. So I played the Benoni, e5, knight, bishop, out of book with a4, bishop g5, e7, and then taking. So this is where it gets especially interesting because now I don't have that knight on the king side. So now I probably want to develop this bishop somehow. I'll bring it out to the pin. Sometimes it can rotate around and attack the pawn here on e4. Yeah, so it ends up being a closed position. Normally you have white has a pawn on c4 as well, so this is completely blocked up. And then you look for breakthrough. Both sides are looking for breakthroughs either on the B or F file. I've been playing for the F file breakthrough. Uh, Here it's weird on the queen side because there's no C pawn, but there's an A pawn. So I could, play A B and try and open up the A file. I should probably prevent that knight infiltration. That could be annoying. Something nice about the Benoni is because of the just the closed up structure, it's kind of hard to attack either way. So you have a ton of time just to slowly maneuver around. It's hard to blunder. Like so related to those moving around is that this D knight tends to move over here to the king side, so we might maneuver it down or to F and up to G5. Wasn't really looking to move him over to the queen side because I'm developing over here on the king side to do an F breakthrough. So now this is hanging, so I'm just going to have to trade that off. That's fine from here. There's some wasted time from the knight maneuvering around. It'd be really interesting if we saw a queenside castle. That'd be funny. Hmm. I could actually potentially just go for it pretty quickly now, the way things have developed. Though I am well overdue for just. Okay, I guess I hung my queen already this stream, so I was going to say I'm well overdue for a completely bonehead move, but we have already at least seen a hanging a queen, so wonder what's next. Yeah, if you aren't looking at a breakthrough, there's kind of you can just sort of get stuck because that's the only thing you can do. Okay, so moving the knight back. So now it's, which place do I want? If I move up, then you can have the deep, the G pawn to push it back anyway. But that also sort of weakens the position, so maybe that's good. Well, let's post it up. Well, can't actually castle queenside now. The knight's moved. All right, so can I just play f5 here? It's not how I would normally look at it, but f5, f5, pawn take, rook take. I think castling was the right move there. You're gonna have to castle. You can't castle queenside. The big thing is this knight on c3 is just not useful right now, other than defending e5 pawn. But because I don't have a knight on f6, nothing's attacking it, or e4 pawn. But yeah, let's just be aggressive, have some fun. I don't know that this is the best idea, but we got our we got our units coming through. And if he doesn't take, I can develop the knight and then put extra pressure on the pawn. Yeah, there wouldn't be an immediate, if I move the knight, there wouldn't be an immediate take back, but I'm not worried about that. That pawn won't be defensible. Yeah, just throw all the pawns. What? What if we create maximum chaos? Just take the pawn, take back. You always have to take like a couple extra looks when you are threatened by a pawn and then don't move your piece. Because if I take with the pawn, then the knight takes this pawn, threatening this knight. Um, take. Uh, Yeah, it would certainly be good to have this file open. That's for sure. Let's also take back with the knight, and then I can move. Then that makes him more active. Yeah, let's just have some fun. Yeah, I'm not too worried about playing the best overall move. So this knight is only defended by the queen now because of the g3 move. So we're sort of looking to battery up here on the f file. Yeah, right here. Right. Yep. Yeah, so we got a fork here. I don't know what the best move is. Most likely, yeah. He also has the option of the b7 pawn, but yeah, the e's probably better. Uh, One threat that I'll have to keep in mind is now that the d6 pawn is gone, it's not an immediate threat, but that will allow this pawn to push and not just threaten to promote, but also open up the diagonal here for the king. Uh, Queen takes, queen takes. Is there any threat with it? No. No, you just take with the knight. Trying to come up with anything is just, it's a rough position for him. See, take, oop, nope. Uh, take. Is there any follow-up? No. Take. Still threatening. Rook. Take, take, take. Take, take, take. Probably, no, can't take that again that night. Trying to envision all the different possibilities. Right? Using, not sure what the follow-up utility for that one is. Yeah, if this bishop weren't here, then at least you could bring up a battery. But even then, you probably don't. You'd still need. Yeah, you still won't be able to overpower it, but it'd be something. And this file's locked up. Okay, so that's pawns hanging. So just gotta double check to not be too greedy. If I take and rook over, I still need to, I'll need to defend that knight. I can come back. You can bring this rook across, but then I can move the knight. And I think that's all good. Okay, so there's the exchange that I was looking at. That's all good. I can play rook in, but that's interesting. Queen would be opposed to that. Queen, queen, knight, knight, take. Move H, and then I have to move back anyway, so there's no avoiding that. Here would lose the queen, so that's a good little trap. Yeah, it looks like I'm gonna have to go this route. But if I move here, check, move away, no real threat from that, yeah. It's one of the really tricky things, one of the hardest parts about learning chess and improving is that um, forcing tactics like mate in three, that's pretty straightforward. Even if you have to, even if it can be hard to learn to do it, you understand what's happening. Um, it can be really hard to find what to do when there's nothing to do, when there seems like there's nothing to do. Um, okay, it did end up going in for the check. Yeah, down to 30 seconds. Uh, so especially if you have, you really newer players, even the opening is like, well, what do I do? I can't attack anything yet. Let me just sort of move stuff, and then maybe I'll get an opportunity to take something. All right. Well, sort of. The, if I move the rook, he takes the pawn. Yeah. Yeah. These are the positions I screw up all the time, being get an advantage, and then the advantage does give them some compensation in initiative, and then yeah, you have to not screw it up. Yeah, so if we move over, rook take. How do I follow it up? Like this knight's bad, this bishop's bad. You can move it up, and then you can move that over. You just move the knight over. That's just going to lose both pawns. Here and then over. At a time. Yeah, yeah, it gets frustrating with time. Ultimately, you need some kind of limitation, but I'll go through that one too. See how that ended up looking. As you can see, the computer never really a big fan of black in the Benoni, even with some unclear moves. So we're developing, recommending bishop back because we're going to have to do something with that eventually. And that might have been a better long-term plan, is having the bishop back on e7 as opposed to out on that diagonal, because it didn't end up being very useful. Yeah, it wasn't a fan of the f5, and I didn't think it was a great move, but I wanted to be, yeah, break it open, have some fun. It's not uncommon for the knight to pass through g8. It's a little weird for, a little unusual for the bishop to end up there, as far as I've seen. But yeah, I'm still playing around with it to get a better feel. Haven't played it a lot. So what did it end up recommending here? So yeah, it liked knight take b7, queen takes f3, queen take f3, rook take f3, and then bring the knight out. Yeah, so the yeah, so I had more of the initiative through this. But the position was pretty close up until this point. I'm not really understand. It would be better definitely to pick up a pawn, but so looking at this move, I'm not quite sure why there's that big of a difference in the engine. It has like a 3-point difference as opposed to one for the pawn. But so the move here that we're looking at is there isn't a way to defend both of these knights, so one of them is going to get lost. So what can you pick up for it? So the two main moves to look at here are knight takes on e5 or knight takes on b7. But it's really tough to find a good position because even the best line is difficult. I don't decry, an aggressive move. So if you're looking at bringing the rook in to try and be aggressive because you're in a tough spot, even if it's slightly dubious, you can there can be value in that too. I didn't see the immediate goal of it, but it did at least help you double up these rooks, which made had to think about the defense. It was suggesting just moving the rook over. Moving into a pin is hard to choose to do. Curious what the final position ended up being. What did it want? What was it suggest? What was the engine suggesting here? Bringing knight f6, just giving up on defending those pawns. So even at this point, the game is still open. I definitely have a good advantage, but you know, two and a half two and a half pawns is not sufficient to say this is all over for playing at my level. Yeah, yeah, we're still okay. I'm just trying to get into a position and have a file, but yeah, that was a fun, interesting game there, Manavri. So glad to get to do that. I'm gonna do one more live one. I think I'm gonna check out. So let me make sure I have that playing board up. Um, White again. Look at that. All right. Oh, we got an accepted. Come on. All right. All right. Come on. Play into my prep. I want to play my prep. Ah, that's not my prep. Well, that's a. I guess he's just going straight for a queenside castle. He's, yeah, I'm not sure what he is up to. Yeah, we're way out of book now. Uh, no, no, can't do that. Maybe. Yeah, Queen C2 is a good spot for the knight, for the queen. Sorry, but I'm going to develop the bishop first. I don't mind the capture here, having that pawn. Yep, provoke f6. Making him play f6 is a win. Probably just bring that bishop back now. It's hard to calculate what the best move was there. F6, you never want to play it. If he plays knight, I had the pawn push. Now he can counter pawn, but capture, capture, capture looks rough. So I'd have to go through the engine to see what was best there. Yeah, the only thing about Queen C2 now is if he's going to castle, being able to move to H5 is also with that open diagonal can be nice. I'm looking at potential breaks here because if I can trade and check, I can also win a pawn. Yeah, knight to e7, probably a good idea. Yeah, open that up further. Um, if I move the knight, I have two attackers here on the e pawn, and I'm threatening check. Whoa, whoa. And resigns. Well, that was just an ugly, ugly sort of game. Uh, uh, yeah, that was sort of my uh, that's a pretty common look of my dubious tactical evaluation. Is I'm not able to evaluate all the way through, but that seemed dangerous, so I went for it. Yeah, you got follow the Ben Feingold rule. Never play f6. I always choose the pawn breakthrough that's the opposite of what the computer is telling me to do when I have e4 d4. I always pick the opposite one. Uh, he wanted queen b3, but let me look at that f move. So yeah, Knight G to E7. F6 is the next best. Oh yeah, he can bring his bishop back, but he certainly doesn't want to do that. And it still wants queen b3. The thing that I was looking at queen b3 earlier, but what I didn't like, and maybe it changed at this point, was because I'm threatening this piece. But what I'm looking at is knight a5. Uh, but I can just take at that point because he's already there. Yeah, it's my brain not seeing the obvious. That's why I didn't end up considering that more. Okay, taking was the right move. That's also very threatening. So they're both pretty good. The king move, I was also trying to decide: do I go queen h5 now? Um, which I think I would have. So the way that would have ended up having to play out is h6 only move. Then you have, say, knight f7 check. Uh, you have to play the rook and you lose the rook. You also play with the bishop. Oh, God. I'm terrible with those boards. Thanks for the reminders again. Yeah, so I was looking at queen b3, but my brain like just like broke, and I looked at this line and didn't see just take the bishop. Um, you see, even at this point, the analysis is showing +2, knight g to e7 being the best move. On the attack, it likes the bishop capture. Queen h5 was still a good move, though. And that's where he gave it up. All right, thanks for hanging out, guys. I'm going to check out at this point. But yeah, we had a good run. Actually, I win all the games. I won all the games today. That's a new one. Yeah. All right, see you guys.